So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Dave Keeling. Hi, Dave.
Hi there, how you doing?
I'm very well. So,
Splendid.
Dave, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a bit about you and tell us a bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, no problem. As you said, my name's Dave Keeling. I am an actor by trade. I still act. I did as the commercial recently, Leg of Lamb half price. I don't know if anybody listening saw that. Nobody did really. I think my mum did. She's my number one fan. I'm an actor by trade. I did 3 years classical training. I do stand-up. I'm a writer, presenter. I built myself also as a stand-up educationalist. I've been working in education business for about 15 years now.
Right.
Essentially just getting people to think is my plan.
Excellent. Well, I mean, there's two things I want to say on the back of that is the first thing is that we share a background in education, because one of the many things I've done along my path is I've taught. I'm a qualified teacher, and I still retain QTS status.
Wow,
I know.
That's amazing.
But I haven't done it for a long time. But I know what it feels like to be in front of a class. So some of the things you talked about in the book, because you use a lot of classroom examples, is I sort of know how that feels in a way. But anyway, before I sort of preempt myself, you've just written this book, which I've just referred to, called The Little Book of Laughter. How using kind of humour as a tool to engage and motivate all learners. Can you tell us a little bit about it and why you wrote it and what it's meant to do and things?
Yeah, my journey into education was a bit of a strange one. I kind of fell into it totally by accident. I'd done my training as an actor. I was, kind of sitting on my backside waiting for Steven Spielberg to call. And weirdly enough, he still hasn't. And a friend of mine approached me just kind of said, look, I'm going to go and work in some schools. I need someone to help me out. Do you fancy doing it? And to be honest, at that point, I was about 22.
Right.
I was like, not really. Young people are annoying. Some of them smell. But luckily, I am an opportunist.
Right.
So I just said to him, look, how much would it be? And he said this much. And I was like, okay, let's give it a whirl. But the upshot of that was that within about a month or two of doing this tour, I practically re-educated myself.
Right.
I read a lot. I experienced a lot. I got back into schools. I'd seen how much education had moved on since I was there.
Right.
And I just had a bit of an epiphany moment of realising the education that I received when I was at school was actually mine. But at the time, I didn't realise that.
Right.
So I thought it was just something that happened.
Right.
Didn't, kind of paid attention when I needed to, but didn't really make the most of it. And I learned a lot. And I just felt that with my skills as a performer, as a stand-up, I could go back and I could engage young people and just empower them, inform them about what's going on and just show them ways to enjoy it. Because so many students I meet, I ask them if they like learning, nobody really puts their hands up. And it's a shame because Socrates once said that life and learning should be a festival of the mind.
Indeed.
Most people, it isn't a festival. It's a wet camping holiday for two. So my quest really in writing...
Even for one, which is even worse.
Even for one, yeah. Although, two can be quite disruptive as well. So the idea about the book, I'd written a couple of books beforehand that were all activity-based.
Right.
And it was basically showing my experiences of what my classroom is normally 400 year 11s for a day in a dinner hall, and that's got its own challenges. And it was really just activities about how to engage with young people. And then this book came about because I'd always been attracted to laughter. It was always whenever I'm in a room, I'm always looking for something to do, to subvert things, to make people laugh. And this really was a bit of a cathartic thing for me to go back and just kind of research why that works. It's always something I was drawn to, always attracted to, always looking for it. And I just thought, let's go back and find out why this works and what's the neurology behind it, what's the psychology behind it. Why do people want to have a good time?
Well, indeed, and I think it was I wanted to sort of jump into the book, but actually, what I wanted to do was, and I've been trying to remember this thing that I heard on the radio. So my wife and I were away for the weekend visiting some friends, and when we came back and listened to the radio, somebody told a joke on the radio, and it both made us just burst out laughing out loud, sort of guffawing.
Remember the joke?
And the joke is, how much is Cockney shampoo?
£1.10.
£1.10.
Hey, you see, it's a cracker, isn't it?
I know, it's brilliant. I just thought we were like, I nearly swerved along the road. I just laughed so loud. I'd never heard that one before, and I thought that's genius.
It is, and do you know what? It's my books for anybody who's hopefully going to buy it and look into it. It's not about being a gagsmith. It's not about going in and firing off 5,000 one-liners. No. It's what I discovered along my journey, was that humour is a cognitive system for processing information.
Right.
Which is essentially, it's a way of looking at the world. Yes. And actually, the once you understand that, the implications of that in your life and your learning is massive. Mm-hmm. You can make better choices.
Yes.
And you can enjoy the smaller moments, the bigger moments, but just look for pockets of enjoyment more often.
Well, I think so. I mean, and the thing is, this might feel like a little bit of a diversion for some of the people that follow this, the interviews that I do. This might feel like a bit of a departure, but it's, well, I guess it's my party and I'll cry if I want to.
Oh, you should be age now.
But I think the reason I was really interested in what you're trying to do and the things you're talking about is, and when I read through the book, the thing that struck me was the idea about how you can use humour to build teams and promote learning and communication and everything else. And also, as I dug into the book, you talked about almost like brain plasticity.
Yeah.
And how that, and it's almost like, because I talked to another chap some time ago, and he talked about having a young mind versus an old mind, or a young brain versus an old brain, and how it all relates to creativity and how we learn and how we communicate and how we adapt to new situations and all of those sort of things, which is not just related to young people and young learners. Actually, it's related to everybody and business and organisations and everything else. And I thought that was the lessons that are in there, the book. I thought they're brilliant. It's not. This might be written for teachers, but in many ways, we're all teachers in all spheres. And all roles.
It's essentially a book about learning, and that hopefully there's a great quote in the book by Bob Monkhouse, which is he says, "Growing old is compulsory, growing up is optional."
Yes.
And the idea, this young mind. I mean, one of the words I came across, a fantastic word whilst researching the book, which is neoteny, which I throw this out when I work with hundreds of people, thousands of people every year. And I throw this word out, and I haven't met anybody yet who's heard of it. Neoteny is the study of juvenile traits in adults.
Right.
This idea that traits that last century were possibly seen as immature and ridiculous and not really worthwhile, this century being recognised as prized traits.
Yes.
Playfulness, openness, resilience, these creative tendencies, things that are inherent in our younger kids, because their minds are like sponges, and they have a lot of what we call plasticity, which is just the ability to grow your brain and to the world is full of possibilities these days. Most of the kids I work with are going into a world where they're going to be doing lots of different jobs, have lots of different careers, and they're going to have to be versatile, flexible, and adaptable. And I think anybody who works in any industry will recognise that that's really key now.
Yes.
To survival. When we say that, most people now won't possibly retire until a lot longer, and we need to evolve.
Yes.
And we need to grow up. And that doesn't mean being serious. It means we can seriously play. And I think that's an important message within the book for me personally, is to encourage people to play more generally in life. Because it leads to all kinds of opportunities.
And do you think play and laughter, are they mutually exclusive, or are they separate, or and why do you think?
I think they're intrinsically interconnected.
Right.
Because playfulness, in my eyes, is linked to curiosity.
Yes.
And curiosity for me is the key to learning. Mm-hmm. I'm always very dubious of people who don't ask questions, and I meet a lot of audiences who will just, because I'm saying things with confidence, will believe I feel I could say anything.
Right.
And people don't question stuff, and I think when we look at, if we take this into the business world and we're looking at developing relationships between teams and companies, but also with clients, this desire to be curious, to engage with people, to not get to a point where a lot of people do, which is they feel they have enough, they know enough, and then they maintain that, as opposed to keep renewing, refreshing, reflecting on these relationships. Curiosity and play continues to grow those areas, and it helps people to continually develop their relationships with people, rather than just getting to a point where people plateau.
Yes.
And I think that's really important in terms of, and also in terms of growing your own brain. Curiosity, engagement, playfulness is just a way of being curious about the world in which we live and about the people we interact with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the other thing that there's, I guess that some of the, if we think about taking this into the workplace, I mean, there's so many people. Well, I'm not going to try to exclude myself from that because I'm not special.
Oh, go on, I dare you.
It's many people, or a majority of people, have all sorts of hang-ups about all sorts of different things and in all sorts of different situations. And particularly when it comes to their professional life, the business life, and the some of the thoughts they might have around trying to use humour or laughter or fun or playfulness in the workplace, and this idea around sort of appropriateness.
Yeah. And of course that has its place. I mean, this isn't about unleashing a whirlwind in your work environment. It's just it's a more of a shift in thinking.
Yes.
There are to be just more. People walk into rooms. We kind of get tunnel vision in life and work because we're pushed at such a rate of speed and rate of change.
Yes.
Just get their heads down. People get their heads down, crack on, and then 10 years later wake up. Find they're in a job they didn't really enjoy, being an area they didn't want to live in. And it's just about being more aware of what's going on around you, looking to engage with and make more positive interactions with the people around you, yourself, and the environment you work in. And it's and there's opportunities for that every single day. And I think sometimes people can get switched off and forget to do it. I mean, smiling is a classic example.
Oh, I think it's a great exercise to, particularly in cities like London.
Yeah.
Where if you walk along the street and then two things, I think: make eye contact with people, and then smile at them. Don't just kind of walk along smiling inanely, because generally that gets you locked up.
Yeah, can do.
Or just makes people think that you're drunk or something. But actually going further than that and actually making eye contact with people, and with the people that actually return the eye contact, is then to smile at them. And I think it's amazing the ripple effects it can have.
Well, we know through neurology and the naturally occurring neurochemicals in the brain, such as dopamine and endorphins.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in a good mood, if you just smile, if you just come out just to sit back and smile, you'll set those chemicals off, and you can't. Even if you force a smile on your face, it will have an impact on your physiology, which is a good thing. And the amount of environments I walk into where people just forget that basic communication tool, and that's what smiling is. It's an openness.
Yes.
It's a welcoming response. It usually puts people at ease, and it's simple things like that can have a massive impact.
And what sort of benefits do you think it can have to overall, when you're thinking about, because the stuff that I talk about is about customer service, customer experience, employee engagement, all of that sort of stuff, team performance, blah blah blah. What sort of benefits could adopting some of these approaches, or trying to inject a bit more humour, a bit more laughter, a bit more fun, a bit more playfulness, a bit more curiosity into the workplace or their team environment?
I'll come back to the business, but let me link it back to my school career.
Okay.
I always talk about the fact that my school career basically went like this. If I liked my teacher, liked my subject, I excelled.
Yes.
If I liked my teacher, wasn't keen on the subject, I probably underperformed.
Yeah.
If I didn't like my teacher, didn't like my subject, I failed it.
Yes.
So bringing that back to today, whether I'm working in business or working in education, the first thing I ask the people is, what do you want to gain from this?
Yes.
Number one, people want to enjoy themselves. They want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Fun can be different to, some people's idea of fun is not necessarily mine, and vice versa.
Yes.
But actually, that comes down to the basic need for human beings to be understood, which is, if you want the neurology behind engagement, that's basically human beings want to be understood. If they're understood, if they feel understood, their self-esteem soars, then their confidence grows, and then they engage.
Yes.
Conversely, if they don't feel understood, their self-esteem isn't in place, confidence goes, and they disengage.
Yes.
And I just think in terms of a company environment, a business environment, a team environment, better engagement with each other, openness, the desire to be curious about one another, to question, to nurture, again, renew, refresh those relationships through what I like to call banter or verbal tickling.
Yes.
Just that desire to enjoy each other's company. And simple things like smiling, but also just taking an interest.
Yes.
And playing with this stuff.
Yes.
Because what it actually does is it keeps a spark in the relationship. And this is good for anybody who's married. that playfulness keeps reimagining these relationships so that we're constantly on the move and moving forward, not getting stale in our relationships. And I think it's really important.
It's funny you talk about sort of, relationships, and it's funny, I was talking to some people yesterday, and I said, look, if I reflect on relationships, and also relationships in business, and particularly if we think about the relationships that businesses have tried to build with customers traditionally through their marketing, it's been very sort of one way, very broadcast. But I think if you step back and think about relationships generally, on the basis on the assumption that all relationships have to have a degree of mutual respect and liking and trust there, but I said on the assumption that most have got that, there are two dynamics I think that most sustainable relationships and long-lasting relationships have, and that is, one is that they have a dynamic of interesting and a dynamic of interested. Yes. Which is, I think, it's quite a fascinating kind of way to think about it. And particularly when you think about the sort of the dynamics and the communication and all that sort of stuff that goes with it. Sometimes you have to be interesting, and sometimes that means you've got to be a bit more fun and playful and everything else. But it's not just all about you. You've also got to think about the other person and be interested in them.
Exactly, which is where the curiosity idea.
Exactly.
And I came across a formula for intelligence, which was CQ plus PQ equals IQ. Curiosity plus passion equals intelligence. Wow. It's idea that the more curious we are, the more passionate we are about who we're with, what we're doing, and the more we question it and look for new ways to make new connections. I mean, I talk in the book about Arthur Koestler's idea of biassociation, which is making connections, new connections between things that don't appear to go together. And that's, when you're looking at relationships and things and developing relationships, that's what we're doing. We're trying to make new connections, find new things out, things together, ideas, people, thoughts, feelings. A good example is I've been married for 12 years. I've lived with my wife for 16 years. Yet I only found out this year she's double jointed, right? And I won't go into detail. But it came about because my 11-year-old daughter came home from school and showed me that she could bend the tip of a finger over.
Right.
And my wife said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I just remember thinking, my point is, you'd think, wouldn't you, after 16 years of cohabiting, that we might have had that conversation? But actually, even in my own life, I realised that I got to a point where I just assumed I knew her.
Right.
And that's, again, as we get older, I think there's a tendency to get a little bit lazy in our thinking, and to get to a point where we do plateau. We think we know enough and we maintain it. And all I'm trying to do is get people to be more, to probe away and to prod and to enjoy those interactions more, so we can develop and move forward and just have better relationships and get up in the morning and have a great day, as opposed to, I mean, we've all woken up, maybe stubbed our toe and had a bad day.
Yes.
And if we approach the world with good humour, then the knock-on effect of that is that we tend to make better decisions.
Yes.
Ourselves, for the people around us and the places we're in, and for anybody as an individual or indeed in terms of organisations, that can only be a good thing.
Well, absolutely. Both personally for them and also for the people around them.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Dave, can you make this real for us? I know the book. This book is, it's almost like split into two halves in a way. There's the science where you kind of get all scientific on everybody and lay it out and say, here's why this is.
I was just trying to sound intelligent.
Well, there's that,
yes.
And then there's the second half, which says, well, enough about the science. Let's do some practice, and here's how you can make this work. Could you give us a couple of examples of some of the things that you would say suggest that people could use to generate more fun, playfulness, curiosity, laughter in their workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of specific examples. I mean, the thing for me is this. We'll take the smiling to one side, but there's things such as just exchanging stories. I mean, storytelling's as old as the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just that idea that there's a lot of fun and humour to be found in truth. Look at Michael McIntyre.
Yes.
The idea of, isn't it's funny because it's a common thing. Look, isn't it funny when we all do this? And just making time to, if people are by the vending machines, that kind of stuff, just to exchange stories.
Yes.
To look for what a friend of mine called Steph Davis calls good humour ingredients. Because actually, as you're saying, it's the being interesting and also interested. And it's to recognise when you're getting the right signals.
Yes.
Which is, sparkly eyes, open eyes, people leaning in.
Yeah.
Simple engagement stuff, changing body language. People's voices change; they tend to go slightly higher, and they get a bit quicker, and because they're excited. And when we look for these actions, it's a fantastic thing. And also to be aware that we can have an impact on that. We can create that just by engaging with people.
Yes.
So to look for those good humour ingredients, because like any recipe, if you know what the ingredients are, you can recreate those moments. Okay. I'm trying to think of some other examples that we could use. I think wherever possible, it's the three key things that I tell people is to be more curious.
Yes.
So just generally just start asking more questions, about people. And that could be, what have you done at the weekend? What did you do last night? All that sort of stuff. Because actually humour sometimes it's not something that's planned.
Yes.
Because a lot of people say to me, it's all right for you because you do this for career. But I think, well, no, if you're in the pub having a drink with your friends, people are always, heckling or coming up with quick, snippy one-liners that everybody laughs at. And actually, a lot of people talk to me about heckling and say, that must be a nightmare. And actually, the thing with heckling is that the trick is just to say something really quickly.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of people don't. A lot of us have been educated to self-edit and think that our first thought isn't good enough, we should think of something better.
Yeah.
So I'd say be more curious, ask lots of questions. I'd say smile more generally. I'd also say get used to saying the first thing that pops into your head.
I think that I would suggest that if you talk about the first thing that would come into your head, particularly if you were Alan Partridge. If somebody was heckling him, all that he would do is go, aha.
Exactly. So, and that's all it can be. That's all it has to be. It's just is a quick response. It doesn't even have to be necessarily the wittiest thing ever. A quick response normally fills a silence. Or if we're getting into technical stuff about heckling, the classic thing is to repeat the heckle.
Yes.
So repeat what the person said to you, so that everybody else around who didn't hear it hears it, and then it gives you a little bit of thinking time.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's classic sort of like public speaking, presentation, sort of crowd management sort of techniques.
Yeah, and also the idea of just being more positive generally is to nick a technique from improvisation, which is simply yes and, which is just to take, when people are talking to you, to take their ideas on board, to say yes, and then to add something to it.
Yeah.
And things then tend to snowball and move forward, as opposed to what a lot of people in life will do sometimes is just block. And that could be out of their own lack of confidence. It might be to do with, one of the things that gets in the way of people's ideas and thoughts is just stubbornness, emotions.
Yes.
We get stuck with an idea. We don't want the other person to get the satisfaction of winning. So we'll stick to an idea, and if it doesn't work.
Yes.
And this whole idea of that the biggest block to learning really is just fear, which I like to say stands for false expectations appearing real, that sometimes we imagine the outcome so strongly we don't do it.
Yes.
So our imagination takes over, and actually, in reality, these things don't tend to happen. Mm-hmm. So again, it's just that shift in thinking, that not to wait for the world to revolve around us, but to go out there and make these positive interactions.
Yeah. I think also that, my next thing I was going to ask was about how we would, if this might seem quite daunting for some people.
It can do.
And my question, because that's all about their personal self-image and confidence and all that sort of like stuff. But I guess the question would be, so people like that might be listening to this and going, oh, that's definitely not me. You can see them leaning back in their chair, crossing their arms, going, oh, that's not me.
Yeah.
That's not me.
I met those people.
I couldn't do that.
And again, that comes back to the idea of can't do what. You see, I think in most people's heads they're going, oh my God, I'm going to have to stand up with a microphone and do 15 minutes of gags, and that's not what this is.
No, it's not like...
No, it's not.
I'm here all week.
Because, well, exactly. You can if you want to. You probably get sacked. But it's just about... when I'm working with students, for instance, students are fantastic because they're very good at saying what's in their minds, but you ask enough questions, people are gonna create stuff. They're gonna come up. They're just gonna say something that's funny. And if your desire to engage them is great enough, then you can develop the confidence through experience to just riff on these ideas, to ask more questions, or to share stories, and that's what it's about. It's about just enhancing, enriching these engagements. But simple things like I will meet people who say, "Well, I'm not funny," and I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think everybody has humour in them, mm-hmm. Because that's the way they see the world. Laughter is simply the payoff for something that's humorous.
Yes.
So I'd say, one of the simplest things to do is just start to become more aware of when you're aware that funny things are happening. Yes. So if somebody says something that makes you laugh, why did it make you laugh? Yes. Was it something they did? Was it what they said? Was it how they were? Was it their reaction? And to maybe keep a little diary of when things happen that are funny that make you laugh, or what does currently make you laugh? When was the last time you did laugh? Who makes you laugh? I know there's a chapter in the book about this, just asking those questions just to get you to think about that world more. Because I think one of the biggest breakthroughs I had was when I went and did a couple of sessions on a stand-up comedy course, just to have it demystified.
Right.
So that it wasn't just this thing that people are born to do. It's actually they're using some simple techniques, which, and again, there's a chapter in the book on the crossover between stand-up and just engaging with people. And this isn't about telling jokes. It's just little techniques that help you create more moments where funny things can happen. So little diaries, that's good, and just become more aware of it. Just what comedians do you think are funny, and why is it? Are you into the kind of sketch-based things you like, slapstick? What is it that makes you laugh? Are there specific words? Miranda always go to specific. Defunct, I love the word defunct. Betwixt makes me laugh. I just like the way it sounds. So just things like that, just becoming, just thinking about it more and reflecting on it more and on what it means to you.
Sure.
Any family members? I still have an uncle, Kevin, who's just still, I like to think I'm quite amusing, but I go into a room with him and he just holds court, and it's amazing to watch.
Yes.
He just has this ability to go around systematically and just be funny. And it's great to watch.
The other thing I would say is that, to get people started on that, is that some people to get people to notice things more, but then it's all very well noticing things and understanding what makes you laugh or what you consider funny and things. But actually, I guess the next step is just to start sharing that with people.
Absolutely.
Because actually, we've all got different senses of humour, and sometimes we've got to get used to each other's sense of humour.
Yep.
As well, because it's just another element of our personality, and therefore it helps us develop a better understanding of those people and what they like, what they find funny, all of those different sort of things. Because if you know what somebody finds funny, then you just end up
stick to it. Yeah.
You stick to it, and you end up kind of looking out and go, "Oh, I saw this," and you're totally going to find this funny.
All that and more. And I think it's really important that at some point the step is to say, to start expressing what's in your head.
Yes.
And again, if we go back to that definition of humour, which is a system, a cognitive system for processing information, a way of looking at the world. So everybody has their own view of the world, and there are and the things that a lot of the time we tend to find things funny that are very similar that we experience, but there's also some differences which we can find fascinating, and that all comes back to this desire to engage with and be curious about the people in front of us or the people we're talking to down the phone. And just come back to the earlier thing about smiling. It makes such a difference if you're on the phone to somebody and you can hear them smiling.
Yes.
It has a way of disarming you, of relaxing you, of making you feel that everything's going to be okay. In terms of the benefits of just using humour for communication purposes, it keeps people's attention.
Sure.
As I said, you want to spend more time with them. It has a way of emphasising key points.
Yes.
And retention of facts or information because we're just enjoying it. Relaxed, happy brains learn more effectively. Stressed out, fearful, anxious brains tend to survive their circumstances.
Yeah.
So the chance of the brain being grown is going to be quite slim. That going back to the idea that it keeps relationships sparky. It's that idea of just renewing and refreshing. We all need to do this.
Yeah, and it makes us more creative, more innovative.
And underpinning that, it's just the idea that it builds resilience. That if we can see the world in a different way, in a more amusing, fun way, then it helps build resilience because we can bounce back from setbacks much quicker.
Yes.
Because we can put it down to experience and we can move on rather than letting that define us. So I think that's a really important one. We forget that.
Yes.
Actually, our ability to laugh at the world or at ourselves sometimes, and just to use that as a positive step forward is massively important.
Yeah. So that seems to kind of bring us to a nice end to that sort of bit of the conversation. Just because in the interest of time, I just thought, well, Dave, is there anything else that you'd like to add, top tips for our readers and listeners that you think this is really important, I have to say this?
Well, that's a good one. A couple of things. There's a great saying that I came across, which is when the mouth is open with laughter, you can pop in some food for thought.
Ah, nice. I like it.
Yeah, and it actually links back to that comment I just made about relaxed, happy brains.
Yes.
Learn effectively, and actually you can once people are in that state. That's kind of how I tend to work. Is that I get people to a point where they're hopefully laughing and really enjoying themselves, and then you can slip in the more fundamental, important stuff.
Yeah.
And then that tends to be retained a lot more effectively. I'd say there's another saying, which is your talent is in the choices you make. And I think if people can just become more aware of the choices they're making, if they get up to when they go to bed, and just to look, just pay more attention to what's going on around them, look at the world and look for those things that stand out and make you funny. It could be the way somebody's walking, a poster in a news agency. It could be anything at all. Something that somebody says that you just go, why'd you say that? That's great. And just to be curious.
Yeah.
Curiosity comes from the Latin to curator, which is to nurture.
Yes.
And I love the idea of that actually what people who bring humour to their life and work are doing is they're nurturing relationships, they're nurturing their world view, and they're constantly reassessing it, looking at it, looking to make new connections. Because that's when things that don't appear to go together come together. That's normally when you get your little moment of sudden glory.
Yes,
as Thomas Hobbes called it, and I think that's important. So it's just looking to have a giggle as often as you can.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So Dave, that's brilliant. So what's your plans for 2014?
Well, obviously, I've got about 3 litres of Baileys to get through over the next couple of weeks, which is going to be fun.
And some boxes of Aldi mince pies, obviously, that you're going to get from your mum and dad.
And whilst my kids are playing on their Aldi tablets, it's an joke, folks, listening. But the 2014 is already looking quite busy. I've got the privilege of going over to America in February to share my thoughts and feelings on humour and laughter out there.
Fantastic.
That's going to be really exciting. And it's an excuse to go to America, really. What else is happening? I'm in the process of putting together a tour, which is very exciting, to take what I do out to theatres and fill theatres with as many people as possible.
Right.
Share these thoughts, feelings and ideas in a more stand-up-y based environment. I'm excited about that. And the prospect of a new book, an idea has sprouted forth into my mind based on something that's happened in this little book of laughter, which I'm going to take off on a tangent. So I'll be looking at that probably in summertime. But generally just hoping to get out there and like I say, have as much fun and make as many positive engagements as I possibly can.
Fantastic. And the final question that I always end these interviews on.
Is this going to be a toughie? Is this a toughie?
No, not at all. Well, it may be. It depends. Is there anything that you'd like to shamelessly plug?
Not really. I'm just honestly I'm really pleased and proud of this book. This was a long time in the making. It's been a good journey, and I've really enjoyed that process. So anybody who's interested, it was written with education in mind, but as you said at the beginning, it has many parallels, especially the first 2/3 of the book, with just life in general.
Yes.
So I've written a couple of other books previous to this called Rocket Up Your Class and Invisible Teaching. So I'm assuming a lot of people listening to this are probably in the corporate sector, but if you have any friends who are in the teaching industry, then pop it in their stocking as a little filler. It's been lovely talking to you, and I hope you have a lovely Christmas.
Thank you so much, Dave. The other thing I was going to say just before, I'll get all this edited up and written up and linked up and things, but I just wanted to say that it's a beautiful little book as well. Sometimes books come and they're just packaged normally, as they are, but this is a very nice yellow, petite hardback book, which is very simple, but it's actually quite a beautiful thing.
Well, you should see me in real life. I'm very similar.
Well, you're 6'2". I wouldn't call that petite.
No, thank you. I'm very pleased with it.
Fantastic. Well,
I can't believe I've managed to even write a book. So I just do it to keep them going.
Dave, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant.
Absolute pleasure. Take care.